mind over matter, where we rethink the rules of resilience and redefine what it truly means to thrive. Today's guest, Rachael Edmondson-Clarke, went from leading corporate boardrooms to lying on her office floor, burned out and broken. That moment didn't end her story, it rewrote it. Now, she's a powerhouse in high performance science, teaching leaders to rise without running themselves into the ground. If you have been pushing through instead of powering up, this episode will hit home. So, Rachel, your mindset alone isn't enough. What was the moment you realized something deeper, something physical was missing in the high performance conversation?
Well, firstly, Anu, can I just say thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show. I absolutely love how you bring this space for us to have these deep and meaningful conversations. So thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. And you're absolutely right. I had understood for many years, 20 plus years, the mindset and the practical psychology that could shift my emotions. Like many of us, understanding that you get to choose the meaning that you create with events and how we move ourselves physically, where we focus, and the language that we use impacts how we feel. But that moment that and it was quite a scary moment that I found myself on the office floor, was also a real wake-up call, and a wake-up call to say that I had been over years building habits that had left my body depleted from working longer and longer hours. I was feeling guilty with myself for neglecting the most important relationship in my life, and disappointed that I wasn't taking better care of my body. And the thing that had been missing massively had been, although I had understood the mindset piece and said, yeah, I can push through, I can reframe this, I can do this. You can only regulate your emotions like that for so long without looking after your biology. And that was the real wake-up call for me.
Absolutely. So, how did that shift your personal and professional approach to leadership?
Massively, actually, in many ways. And I mean, that incident was now more than 10 years ago. And I would say that my approach to leadership, both of myself and with others, is ever evolving. We're constantly learning more and more. And I think for me, if we're wanting to create cultures of high performance, if we ourselves want to perform well as leaders, then we've got to pay attention to the little things. I would say the things that your grandma would always say to you, are you getting good sleep, good nutrition? Are you spending time with people who you care about and who care about you? Are you getting out in nature, in daylight? Because nobody would expect a high performance athlete to be running the marathon or competing or playing the game every single day. There would be rest and there would be recovery that would be built into that high performing plan. And yet what I see is I see a lot of leaders and I see a lot of people in business that expect of themselves, and high achievers that expect of themselves and of others to keep going. And they will push and they will go, if I can just get through this project, if I can just get to the weekend, if I can just get to the holiday, like my next holiday. And I think we just have to be so, so careful of that, because it's not a model for high performance. And so how this has changed my leadership is that I now look at how I integrate restoration into my day. And I use the word integration intentionally. I think a lot of people talk about work-life balance. And whilst I get that, I prefer the idea of work-life integration. because it's not switching off or on. We are a whole person, whether we are, and I know that we will wear different hats for different roles, but we are a whole person. And so, if we've got demands that are being, that we have to meet as leaders or in our workplace with our families, if we've got the resources to meet those demands, things feel okay. They feel good. As soon as those resources start to drop and there's a gap between the demands that are being made on you and the resources that you've got, that gap feels uncomfortable. Now, that might be led by metabolic resources. So things like sleep, hydration, food, good food, daylight, nature, social. It might be some of those things. And so, how do we integrate those into our day? How do we, instead of jumping on a Teams or a Zoom call or a Google Meet, how do we make sure that actually we're taking a telephone call and we're going for a walk outside and we're getting some daylight and nature and some fresh air? How do we make sure that we are taking regular breaks? We are so sedentary traditionally now. I think, people will spend so much time at their desks. So how are we making sure that we are building that movement into the day? And how are we making sure that we're integrating that restoration throughout our working day to keep our resources topped up? And of course, that's on the metabolic side, but clearly there's also emotional impact as well. So if those are the things and those are the inputs that we've just been talking about that would impact our mood, our energy, and our ability to deal with stress, there is also then external things that happen to us. Somebody sends us that email, or we get the call on the telephone, and it's like, oh, and it triggers us, and we're like, it's that person, or it's that thing, or that, and so how we then deal with that, that's going to be a lot harder if we haven't restored ourselves and we haven't restored our mood through those kind of inputs that I've just been talking about. So we're able to do mind over matter so much better when we've looked after the biology first.
Absolutely. And that's such a raw truth. So many people think they've failed when really they've just exhausted their biology.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly. And the other thing is that, you get very high performers and they think that they're doing things, say, for example, like going for a run or, to the gym, and they're getting up early in the morning to go and do these things. And I think we have to be mindful of restorative practices and what is going to serve us and serve us well. So, for example, restorative movement, things like, yoga, walking, not like a hard hitting cardio exercise, and just being mindful of what's going to be most restorative for you and tuning into that, because this impacts our ability to deal with with stress. And just like you were saying, that if we are under resourced, then the work that felt manageable to us yesterday today doesn't feel manageable, and it pushes us into the distress opposed to the eustress, which is that healthy level of stress that allows us to perform at our best. Sometimes the first time that I know that I am maybe in a mood and under resourced, I've got two young children, and what they do one day might make me laugh, or I might think, oh, that's them being age appropriate, and the next day they do the same thing. I'm under resourced and I find myself snapping at them.
Absolutely makes sense. So let's talk about the energy factor. How can leaders move from chronic overwhelm to energized performances without needing to hustle harder?
Really great question. So, this for me comes back to our habits, and it's the little things that we do. And it's recognizing, I think, that as leaders, every day is different. Now, I'm going to describe three types of day to you, and let me know if this resonates. We have those wonderful days, which are like what I would call bubble wrap days. Those days where we get to do all of the things that really helps us to fill our cup. mentally, physically, emotionally, like it fills your soul to do whatever it is that you're doing. But let's be honest, there's very few days where we actually get the luxury of being able to do the bubble wrap. Most of the time, I would describe our lives as we're out in the wild, we're fighting, we're making our way through, we're doing the thing. And occasionally, and I trust that it's occasionally for most people, is that we would be paying the price. And what I mean by that is, we have an urgent deadline or we are traveling with work. And it means that we're in a situation where actually it's difficult to follow some of our habits and our protocols because it's an intense period of work where you just need to focus on what's happening right now and deliver for that. And it might mean that you pay the price and that you sacrifice some things while you're doing that. So if we think that there's maybe, very broadly speaking, 3 different types of days, and how do you sustain your energy without hustling harder? I would say it's about looking at what's going to serve you best. And one of the things that I have found enormously helpful is by tracking and having 10 or so things that are important to me. So for example, my sleep, my hydration and my water intake, following my nutritional protocol, which is different for everybody, right? But you know what serves you well. Um, Practicing gratitude, meditation, breathing, so having some of these things that you are consciously working towards each and every day. And what I found enormously helpful is having almost like 2 tiers of targets with those. So a base level target. So let's take sleep as an example. My base level target with sleep would be to have 7.5 hours in bed. Time in bed. That's what I'm measuring. Have I had 7.5 hours in bed? My elite level, though, would be 8.5 hours plus. So now sleep again is going to be different for everybody. But this 2-tiered system, the whole idea behind that is that that base level is something that you could achieve even when you are paying the price, even when you are out in the wild. And so instead of having this, oh, well, these are my targets and this is what I want to do every day, and then you feel crap because you don't make those, it's about having this flexibility and having this kindness with yourself and being really clear, bright lines around, okay, even on those days when things are tough, what are the base level habits that I can work towards and that I know that I can hit? Breathing, for example. My base level is 1 minute. No matter what's happening, can I intentionally breathe for 1 minute a day? Yes, I can do that. My elite level, 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes of meditation or breathing exercises. So I think thinking about those, the little things can be everything. So thinking about those little things and thinking about a 2-tier system, what's going to serve you best, and having those 2 levels so that you can adjust dependent on what kind of a day you're having, I think it keeps you moving forward in the right direction.
Yes. And I absolutely love that because I struggle with routines a lot. Some days are just bubble wrap and perfect, and others I just stop doing everything I was supposed to do, like sleeping and breathing. But I think I'm gonna personally use that so much because that will help me be in a better routine and actually keep myself in check.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It helps keep that focus. Um, One of the other things that I have within my targets that I look at is my focus and protecting that, because there's so much that I think that takes our focus, whether it's the news or social media at the moment. And so how we protect that, my base level is 3 minutes of focused work before I do anything else, just 3 minutes. My elite level is 30 to 60 minutes. No distractions, nothing else, not checking emails, but working on the stuff that's really important and that I know is going to move the needle before anything else or anyone else gets my attention and steals that focus.
Yeah, I love that. So, what are a few subtle signs that someone's running on empty before full burnout hits?
Well, there's a number of risks and outcomes. So things that you, and this can be really quite predictable. So what often happens is that people in the workplace might become disengaged. So you might find yourself retreating and being less engaged and bought into what's happening. Substance abuse is another risk, of course. Poor mental and physical health can also be issues, challenges with the sleeping and such like. An increase in negative bias. So when we are under restored, and when we are headed towards burnout, our bodies are far more likely to be in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And in being in that mode, we're more likely to see things more negatively and perceive people and things and situations more negatively than we would do if we were fully restored and performing well. So, all of those are things to watch out for. And of course, within that, people will have their own signs. Something that I know happens for me and I have to watch out for is that I will get eczema, and so I will start to get eczema either around my eyes or on my hands if I know that actually I'm getting a bit stressed. This is distress, not eustress. And so, but for other people it will be other things. But you will know yourself and you will know yourself well. So, but there's some of the common things to look out for.
That clarity is a wake up call. Performance isn't just about output, it's about capacity.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And this is the thing for me that I feel gets missed an awful lot. So I do a lot of leadership development and training. And whilst a lot of traditional training methods will focus on the cognitive, so the strategy, the tools, the tasks, the things that we can learn and develop our skills and capability. But what so many courses forget is that they forget that leaders need to have the capacity to be able to lead well. When we're well restored and we are in a good place from a mood and emotion perspective, it has this wonderful impact, not only in terms of our own high performance, but also it simultaneously impacts cultures. Because when you are feeling good, you will show up more authentically, get my words out. You'll show up more authentically. That will help build trust with the team, which will help build psychological safety. It will build greater inclusion, and all of these things that we want at a macro level in an organization, from a cultural level within an organization, come from how we lead by how we make people feel. And we've got to first look after ourselves as leaders to then be able to create the right environments for other people to feel safe, and to feel valued and included and engaged.
Absolutely. So, you have worked with top executives across Fortune 500 companies. What's a common blind spot even high achievers miss when it comes to sustainable success?
I think the common blind spot is, and there's probably a few, but the one that I see most is this under appreciation for their biology. So the things that we've been talking about, you see leaders who will work and work and work, and they will maybe skip breakfast or they'll grab lunch on the go, and they're not integrating this restoration into their work day. And it's because they have exceptionally high standards for themselves, and that can drive then some depression as well. Actually, they have these very high standards, and when they don't meet those high standards, that drives some depression and arguably some anxiety, some self doubt, and it becomes a perpetuating sort of negative cycle that they can get into. And and I think people often think that this is bigger, and I say bigger, I don't know if that's quite the right word, but they feel as though it's more insurmountable than they can manage, whereas actually it's quite predictable. It's quite predictable when you ignore these things. It's it's predictable that this is how you're going to feel, and this is going to be the outcome, and this is going to be your performance.
Absolutely. And that shift from high speed to high awareness is where true leadership begins to transform.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. So much of I think awareness is that first step, isn't it? Because when we're aware, then we can choose to do something differently about it, or we'll find help to do something differently about it, for sure.
Absolutely. So, Rachel Edmondson-Clarke is redefining what high performance looks like, from burnt out driven hustle to sustainable, science backed leadership. If you're tired of holding it all together and ready to feel whole, take this as your invitation. Lead with clarity, rest with intention, and perform like your health matters. Because it does. So, until next time, remember your energy isn't a nice to have, it's your edge.